Thankfully, it is Friday. Yay! So Russ, you had something to start the show?
Yeah, let's talk about when you're the tech guy in the family. There are days that it makes me want to be stupid. It's days that I kind of wish I was dumb so I could just say, I don't know how to do it. But the problem is when people see that you have some high-tech stuff that works, then they know you're lying. And I'm talking about parents and family members. So when you go down, see, the problem is in the 21st century, no business wants to give any kind of customer service anymore. They want to sell you their product and they want to forget about you. And the end user has to either know somebody or they're pretty much effed. And so, so once you go to somebody's house with the intention of, let's say, hooking up cable and find out like some of the stuff they have is inferior or, the router's in the wrong place. So you start to go down the rabbit hole. And, now the person on the other end is fine with like buying all these things. But the problem is the other person, meaning me, there has to be return trips, right? Because you can't do it all in one shot. So now it becomes, like an adventure. And then I've got that going on now on two factions of my family. And, it's getting to the point where at some point I am just going to say, I don't know how to do any of this. And you're all on your own. And I may do that. And I may do that sooner than later. So, because like even the phone that's ringing now is a tech call for me. I'm not answering it.
Well, okay. Here is how bad customer service has gotten. I don't have any problem saying what the company is, but Spectrum Time Warner renamed themselves Spectrum, and their customer service has always been, but only in the last little while has it gotten to the point of a real annoyance. I subscribe to HBO, and one of the perks of HBO is a website called HBO Go. You can also have it as an app on your phone. Right. And it allows you to watch anything that's been on HBO since the beginning of Christendom, on demand. Now they have on demand on the TV, but but like if I want to watch it someplace else, like if I'm staying in a hotel or something like that, I can tap it that way. Okay, so I go on there. I've got the sign on. I sign on the thing, and for about 2 months, it has basically said, you cannot connect at this time. Please try again later. And right. I keep trying back later, and nothing happens. So to the point, I called them up last week, go through like 3 stages of customer service, get to the highest level, and they say, we're putting in a ticket on this. We should respond back to you within 24 or 48 hours. Okay, fine. Did they respond? Absolutely not. And that's the thing that pisses me off. It's like, okay, I know customer service sucks now, but when you say you're going to respond within 48 hours and you don't, I'm now on the friggin' warpath.
Right. I get it.
But I'm also the person as well who is luckily I have an older brother who's in the electronics business, so he's very technical. He knows how to do a lot of things, a lot more than I do. But I'm the one who at 11 o'clock when my mother is complaining, she calls me, and I'm living in the city and she's living in the suburbs, and on demand on the TV. But like if I want to watch it someplace else, like if I'm staying in a hotel or something like that, I can tap it that way. Okay, so I go on there. I've got.
Sorry, God.
Okay. Yeah, no, we don't need to hear me twice.
Right. Or me.
I'm the one who she calls when the DVR is not working on her TV, and I'm trying to explain it to her. And my mother's in her 80s, and you trying to explain the DVR and how to shut off a recording, and without being there, you're just beat your head against the wall. It's much easier to do that than it is to explain to somebody over the phone.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no question. And you wish there was a little. I'm going to get up one sec. You wish there was a little help, but the reality is there is no help for you. And so I'm just trying to keep my sanity at this point. And that's what we're shooting for. Just trying to keep my sanity. Let's start the show.
Okay. as he walks off camera.
Right.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2018.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. There were a number of games last night and some injury news and notes this morning.
I want to address the chat room before we even start the show.
Sure. We'll take some questions at the end of the show, by the way.
We'll take some questions at the end. I do want to address, like I just typed into the chat room, someone says, you don't talk about the Bruins enough. I think if somebody goes back to listen to our shows for the last 2 weeks, we have probably talked about the Bruins every other day. Just saying.
And we had somebody in the comments who said, Mike, you always default to talk about the Leafs. I cover the Leafs. What the frig do you expect?
Right.
We try to talk about as many teams as possible, but when we're talking about something specific, I fall back to the team that I cover. This person was wanting us to talk more about Chicago. We talk about Chicago all the time. We talk, Anaheim. We talked about Anaheim yesterday. We try to cover as much of the league, but it's where the news goes, and
it is where the news goes sometimes. That really is. That's a part of it.
So
I just want to let everybody know that.
Yeah,
we do our best.
So starting with the news, and it came out about an hour and a half ago, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who had been, I think he'd been out for a couple games. They finally came out with him having a sternum injury, and he's going to be out 5 to 6 weeks. Now, this is, Edmonton is in a situation right now where they're trying to, stay relevant and stay in the race in the West. They're not doing it very well. I'm pulling up the standings now, but last time I looked, they were like 6 or 7 points out of the wild card spot. And this doesn't help Russ. I mean, if he's we're talking about him being out till early March after the trade deadline.
Right.
If that's the case, I mean,
it's over for them. It's over.
Yeah.
Season's over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. And yeah, Edmonton right now has 43 points. They're 10 points behind Colorado, 11 points behind Calgary. You can go into full trade mode now, Edmonton. Peter Chiarelli. You can trade off your Patrick Maroons and whatever else is expiring contract wise, because I don't think it's happening. But this is like stick a fork, you're done territory with Nugent-Hopkins.
This is the last straw. Like at this point, if you're an Edmonton fan, you could legitimately tune out for the rest of the show. We probably don't have anything else to say. There's nothing they could do trade wise to fix what's going on. This is a death blow. Move on.
And that's the thing that's discouraging for them, because you're talking, okay, here are your 3 UFAs: Letestu, Maroon, Camilleri. You've got Slepyshev, who they've already said they're interested in trading. Drake Caggiula, they're RFAs. Brandon Davidson, Matthew Benning, Darnell Nurse needs a new deal. I mean, there's not a lot there other than, now if they want to trade Ryan Strome, who's an RFA and who has not had a lot of success after coming over from the Islanders, fine. But right now, like the only thing that I think you're getting significant assets for would be Maroon. And after that, I don't see who you're trading unless you're interested in trading. And this is where you go back to Nugent-Hopkins, because we've said, McDavid's contract kicks in next July. So that's right. $12.5 million on the books. And Draisaitl's contract is already on the books. So more than likely, even if he comes back in March, I think these will be the last games that Nugent-Hopkins plays in Edmonton.
I do too. All right. Next subject.
Okay. Kevin Shattenkirk was...
we didn't create the Ranger news. The news creates itself.
Yes.
I want to point that out.
Kevin Shattenkirk, who has not scored a goal in, I believe it's now 27 games. He had 8 assists in 26 games. That was the last statistic I saw. He is now out indefinitely, will have surgery to repair a torn meniscus. Now, Russ, we know the type of player that Shattenkirk is, and we know how the quality he is offensively. His numbers have dropped off, which would lead me to believe that he's been struggling with this knee injury for a while.
Yeah, no question. The same way I've been telling people, I believe Ryan McDonough's been struggling with an injury all season as well. Mm-hmm. But he's still doing it. Here's the thing. We're all going to play amateur doctor, but at the end of the day, when people say, well, it looks like he's out for the season, I don't believe he's out for the season. There's different degrees of meniscus tears. Sometimes you don't even need surgery. Sometimes you just need to rehab. It's actually happened at a good time of the year if you think about it, because with the All-Star break, that's an extra like almost week where there's no games. Right. So normally, if you even just do a Google search, it'll tell you it could be 2 to 3 weeks or 6 to 8. Yeah. And my guess is that it's probably somewhere 2 to 3, because if it was a full tear, I think we would hear that, hey, you know what, he's out for the season, or at least out to the playoffs. We didn't hear that. We just heard definitely.
Right, but and most teams, the Rangers might be the exception. The Leafs, I know, are very close to. Oh, wait a second.
The Rangers are too.
I talked about the Leafs. I shouldn't say that. Sure. They'll describe day to day, week to week. Here it's indefinitely, which to me expresses some lengthy time period, but it could be. But Stamkos had a torn meniscus. He was out for the remaining 60 games of the regular season. Victor Hedman had a torn meniscus. He's out 3 to 6 weeks. So you're right. There is a difference in terms of
varying degrees of the tear and how the player can handle rehab to get back. Because that's the thing. Players now can push themselves dramatically in rehab. They can do all kinds of things. You could do cryogenics. You could do the hyperbaric chamber. So a lot of players are literally working on it 24/7 almost, if they really can get back that quick. So that's the thing. We don't know what that is.
Now, the Rangers won last night. They beat the hapless Buffalo Sabres 4-3. But right now, I mean, if you look at the Rangers in terms of injuries, I mean, it's not only Shattenkirk. It's also Kreider, who had that rib portion. Or no, did he have the surgery? Or is it
surgery? Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to be out. I think they said 6 weeks.
Yes.
So he's out. Stahl's out on a short-term basis. Kevin Hayes is out on a short-term basis. They're really dipping into the American Hockey League now.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. So the reason they traded Stepan and got D'Angelo back was so he could be a depth defenseman.
Right.
So they called him up. It's not a bad guy to call up, because here's the thing, and this happens a lot of times in coaching. Coach uses a guy like Anthony D'Angelo, decides he's not right for my team this year. We're going to send him back to the American Hockey League. But then situations and injuries occur, and now, as a matter of fact and just out of necessity, he's going to get another chance. Anthony D'Angelo could really do himself a favor here by having a good showing, because if he has a good showing, then all of a sudden that changes the Rangers' defensive woes dramatically. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like. We'll see how they use him. I mean, again, they may use him on third pairing for 8 minutes a game. They might. And then if he does that, he may not get a full shot. But again, if there's a chance here, sometimes teams, despite themselves, will find a player that fits in that wasn't sort of, ever given a fair shake. Right. This could happen with the Rangers. And that's why I don't think this injury automatically puts them out of the playoffs. Actually, there are probably some fans that will tell you that their defense will improve without Shattenkirk. And I think there's some truth to that. I think it will improve without the injured Kevin Shattenkirk. Right. So it is possible that their defense gets a little better here. And we'll see. I mean, that's the thing. That's with the chemistry of a team. These are the things that can go on.
And for those who are critical of Mark Stahl and his sort of lack of mobility, they may say they may be better without him. I still like Stahl in terms of.
He's had a good year. He really has.
Yeah, but there are people who criticize and no matter how well the player plays, we'll just continue to do so. Now let's touch on some of the games. Eklund will be joining us any moment. The game last night that I watched from my abode. And you were at. We won't talk about the Lindros retirement ceremony. It was very nice. It was a little lengthy, but very nice.
It was a good job. Very good
job by the Flyers. But the game itself, and I wrote this morning about this, Russ, especially with the commentary that happened afterwards coming from the Leafs. It was the same old for Toronto, and you were there to see it firsthand. Leafs got a 2-0 lead after 2 periods. Connor Brown and Freddie Gauthier scored goals. The Flyers erased the lead in 1 minute and 52 seconds early in the third period. A good play by Nolan Patrick, stealing it off of Mitch Marner's stick, and then a shorthanded goal by Wayne Simmons. The Leafs hold on for dear life in the third period. Freddie Anderson earns them a point, and then 18 seconds into overtime, a completely botched 2-on-1, both by William Nylander and Jake Gardiner, allows Couturier to score the game winner. And after the game, we'll talk about after the game afterward. But what did you think of the Leafs' performance and the Flyers as well?
So in between the first and second period, I was goofing around with Chris Johnston, who, by the way, will be on Off the Post tonight at 10 o'clock. Just letting people know. But anyhow, I was goofing around with him, and I said, hey, maybe this night will go easy for you, and the Leafs will break out to like a 2-0 lead. And then I let there be a little bit of a pause, and I said, but then the Leafs can't hold a lead. And they can't, and they didn't. And even though the game didn't look like it was going to go that way, it did. Right. It was a carbon copy of the way they've been playing the last 3 or 4 games. Connor Brown, the only difference with his goal and a shorthanded goal was that it wasn't shorthanded, but he got the goal the same way. I felt like Neuwirth really helped out on that. The way people kept saying, well, it's one-on-one, the shooter has the edge. Yeah, but the problem is his pads were so wide open that by the time he closed his 5-hole is why it trickled in, because he just gave him so much to shoot at. Yeah. There was no reason for Brown to go anywhere else. But anyhow, moving on from that, it was a game where Anderson played great. And I think that's why post-game he basically challenged his teammates saying, let's see who really wants to win now, because, he's getting tired of having all these performances where he's literally holding back the other team when there's zero offense. And why is there zero offense? Well, again, there's zero offense because Mitch Marner is now a pass-first guy. People could argue with me, but the Mitch Marner that is here in front of us right now today, forgetting about what happened weeks ago, Mike, but right now, last 4 games, he is a pass-first guy who's literally not necessarily afraid to shoot, but he is afraid to really take the puck on his own and try and make his own play to shoot. He doesn't do that right now.
I don't think there's zero offense because, and you're not just saying because just Mitch Marner. Because
there's other guys too. Obviously,
factors,
the same thing.
Right, other factors as well. But yes. it's more than that. Hayak, it's more than that because for the last 2 months, the Maple Leafs, what they have been doing has been implementing a playoff style defensive concept. They know they can score goals. They know they can play wide open like they did last year, like they did in the opening month. And Babcock is intent on getting players like Nylander and Marner to play a more two-way game. But the problem is, and you saw that last night, is they only get so many offensive chances playing, to use the Stratomatic example, to play a 1-0. They're playing a 1-0. They're limiting offensive chances. They're keeping the shots to the outside, at least trying to, but sometimes they don't do it well enough. And the problem is when they do get scoring chances, like Patrick Marleau's chance in the third period, Neuwirth stones him blind, or Kadri has a breakaway in the third period. He misses the net completely. They're not seizing on their few offensive opportunities. They're more of this team is more of a wide open team that they cannot, at least they haven't shown the evidence that they can play a two-way game. And when they expend so much effort and energy on defensive hockey, they have nothing left in the offensive zone, and they're covering up for a pathetic defensive core that. I thought last night, they had a couple guys like Dermott, and I actually thought Roman Polak had a pretty decent game, but Jake Gardiner cost them when it counted, and they really have a lot of problems generating offense when they try to play responsible defensively. And I don't blame Freddie Anderson for losing it. I don't blame him for calling some of his teammates on the carpet. Now we'll see what happens when they respond to that. What's going on?
Hey guys, how you doing? Sorry, battling pretty bad cold, but I'm gonna
just give us what you can get.
Grind it out.
I want to end. Anyway, before we get into things, someone just texted me I guess you guys, I don't know if you guys talked about it yet, but the names that are registered for the Seattle NHL team.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
It's pretty interesting, so there are 13 names registered by the Seattle NHL group.
Okay.
And, I thought some of them were kind of interesting. I don't know. I want to get your opinions on them, but
well, let me ask you first of all: was one of them the Metropolitans?
No.
because that I believe that was the old Seattle. That was the like the Ottawa Senators was the name of the Ottawa team back in the 20s. I think when there was an NHL team in Seattle, it was the Seattle Metropolitans.
Right. No, so here's the names. Here's the names I have. That the Thunderbirds are of course the team that's been there for a long time.
Right.
The Ken Hitchcock. Hitchcock coached for the Seattle Thunderbirds for several times. So there's some pretty good ones though. All right, so the Seattle Cougars. I'm not a big fan of the Cougars.
Nah.
Cougars and Panthers are the same animal. So really, essentially, that's like not a great thing for we already have Panthers in our league. The Seattle Eagles. No. Not necessarily a fan of that, although there are lots.
I don't like it.
Yeah. The Seattle Emeralds.
Terrible.
Now this is it's terrible. I mean, this goes off the color though that that everybody in Seattle loves so much. Their MLS.
Right, but then they're copying the Seahawks, aren't they? Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the MLS team, which are all like I mean, the Major League, the soccer team in Seattle, those jerseys are one of the best sellings of all time. Those are just crazy.
Yeah. That's with the big face of Drew Carey, right? Is that what the logo is?
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
The Seattle Evergreens. Nope. I'm not a big.
No, that's like the Minnesota Wild. Don't get into that. Come on.
Yeah. The Seattle.
Hold on. I kind of like the Evergreens, like from a getting back to nature standpoint, which there are a lot of people there that do love nature. You know what? Evergreens is not terrible.
No, it's not awful. I mean, it's the best so far of those four, right?
Yeah.
The Seattle Firebirds.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, no.
Long time ago, though. I mean, I have my Philly Firebirds jersey somewhere behind me there.
Yeah.
I like this one, the Seattle Kraken. Come on, that's pretty cool.
No, my God, what is this?
It's fictitious. Like that's like saying Rocky's a real person in Philly. Come on.
No, the Kraken is awesome.
But the Kraken's not real.
I know, but it's such a cool, release the Kraken. It's just got such a cool.
Okay, when you go release the Kraken in stadium, what are you going to have there?
This is the if you can see it, and I'm sorry with my phone. This is the emblem of the Seattle Metropolitans. It looks like a candy cane, but it's a red, white, and green jersey. So probably
bring it back for the outdoor game in 2025.
That looks like Friendly's peppermint stick ice cream. That's what that looks like.
Looks like something Peppermint Patty would wear. But go ahead.
Yeah.
The Seattle Rainiers.
What is a Rainier? I don't even know what that is.
Well, Mount Rainier.
Oh, Mount Rainier. Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
The Seattle Renegades.
Too many teams that are Renegades.
How about the Seattle? How about the Seattle Sasquatch?
I like the Sasquatch idea a lot.
Actually, I like the Sasquatch. I think you could do something with that.
I think that would be cool. The Seattle Sea Lions.
Maybe.
That feels right for some reason.
That does feel okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
There's something about that feels good.
Well, there's the whole Puget Sound thing,
Yeah.
Right, but it's too close to the Seals. Like Seals.
Well, they also have Seattle Seals too. But I think you could do another Seals in the NHL.
Yeah, no, I think you could. You could.
No, Seals is over.
The Seattle Sockeyes.
I like that.
You're going to name them after a salmon?
Why not? There's plenty of salmon out there.
You're going to have a salmon-colored jersey?
Mike, do you ever shop for salmon? Salmon's expensive.
Yes, I bought some salmon yesterday.
It's like buying gold, so,
It cost as much.
Seattle Totems.
What?
Totems, like totem.
Like a totem? No, that's all.
That might be in the finalist.
Oh,
you like that?
No,
I don't. But I think it'll be a finalist.
And then finally, the Seattle Whales.
See, the problem is the Seattle Whales. If there's ever a guy who's a little overweight on that team, he's going to just be destroyed. Like if Dustin Bufflin gets traded to the Seattle Whales, it's over for him.
Is Keith Kachuk going to be the general manager?
You already have the killer whale on the Vancouver jersey, right?
I was going to say, well, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, you could. I was going to say if you made it killer whales,
it would have to be the American whales, the Seattle American whale. So this way it differs from the Canadian whale.
Yeah,
hold on. Eck might know the answer. I don't. Eck, is there a difference between the Canadian and the American whale? I'm sure the American whale goes into Canadian waters and probably doesn't even have to show any ID and then goes back. But are there any Canadian whales on their own, like they don't go to the States, or do they all migrate?
Is there a difference between I think the Canadian whales are ruled by a much nicer president. But I can't think of any other.
No, the Canadian whale is measured in meters.
Canadian whale feels bad about eating all the krill it eats. Canadian whale apologizes way too often.
Wait, there's a Canadian Whale Institute. I think there are Canadian. It seems like there are Canadian whale. Yeah.
I'm starting a campaign for the Seattle Sasquatch.
I like that. I actually do like it. Yeah. I actually didn't mind the Seattle Moose. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Seattle Moose would actually be okay.
Yeah, but then they're copying Manitoba.
Yeah, but NHL team. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I got to check. I got to do one thing. Right back.
We can't really go on about it, but Elliot Friedman just tweeted out that Red Fisher has passed away.
Oh.
And I remember Red Fisher.
I just want to tell DB in the chat room, we beat your ass to the announcement. So there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Red Fisher, who was part of the satellite hot stove on Hockey Night in Canada for years, but obviously before that was a longtime writer in Montreal, and a Hall of Famer, and it's
a shame.
It is a great shame. It's a great loss.
Way to bring down the show, Mike.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, but yeah. So if it doesn't necessarily mean one of those 13 names is going to be the name. They just trademarked it. They could go back and do it again. No, or do another group of names. But the funny thing is they seem to be moving pretty quickly here. They're
moving very quickly.
Let's get back. I'm sorry. What are you guys talking about? I apologize.
Seattle.
Yes.
Seattle.
We have no interest in Seattle. Like, it's not even on the radar. All of a sudden, they're picking out names and trademarks. And
I know. They're
picking out a new house already. It's like
for all the process that the NHL has. You got to go through this. You got to prove economic feasibility. Really, it comes down to a billionaire. Like if you, like we talked about many times, if you've got a billionaire, it's okay. Like you can put a team in almost anywhere. And
there are already. I heard one this morning. There are already starting to be rumors about who might go where. And one of the things is there's been some rumor about Ken Holland and the Vancouver Canucks, because Ken Holland's contract with Detroit is up at the end of this year. And there's been talk about Jim Benning in Vancouver and how he might be on the outs. But
I don't believe that one.
Right. But in concert with that, because Ken Holland is from Western Canada, apparently has some home in BC. There is speculation that he might be the George McPhee for Seattle to go there, and he may want a challenge, and that might be the challenge. Yeah. So, when you start hearing that, and you start hearing names being chosen, and they're getting season ticket drives, it sounds like everybody is on board here, and that this is on the fast track.
It's definitely on the fast track.
My question is, and now I think the problem they have is they're going to have to bring only one team in at a time now because of what's happened here.
Right.
With
yes.
Vegas. I know they want to bring two in. I know they want to bring Quebec in at the same time that they bring Seattle in. So the question is, I think that's going to be up to Quebec and how they play that out.
Well, okay, let's think about this though. If we go 33, if we go two expansion teams, is it possible they go to that three conference structure? I don't know how it would work.
I hope not. No,
unless it'd be three conferences of 11 teams. I don't know how it would work, but scheduling wise, that might be the best. It's good that are 16 and 17 in one in one conference, one in the other. So
I was talking to somebody, and I've proposed this before, and everybody's laughed at me all the time for it, and you'll laugh at me again now. But I did talk to somebody about the concept of that, and the idea of, I've always thought that the Canadian teams, you could put them all in the same conference, in the same division, like as far as, because we always go east-west because of time zones, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that, and someone did say that there actually was pretty funny that it had been discussed, the whole concept of the Canadian teams being in the same conference, and the problem and the benefit to it, there were some tax benefits to them not playing outside the U.S. apparently. So
sure. And Hockey Night in Canada would love it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Right, and I'll tell you one reason it probably won't happen. If they maintain the same type of structure, you're guaranteeing that at least half of the teams in Canada don't make it, and that's the benefit of having the ratings in the regular season of Montreal, and Toronto, and Ottawa, and everybody playing each other is great. But then when half of your markets are eliminated in April, that's going to have a detrimental effect. So I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Plus, again, my biggest worry here, Ek, is the Canadian dollar is still only 80 cents to the American dollar. Yeah. I don't think Quebec's going to be rushed in. I really don't.
That's definitely the issue right now. Yeah. They would be in there by now. I
still think they're years away because of the economy.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, a couple interesting things that we'll touch on the games, or maybe we'll take.
We can throw up.
Yeah, but now I heard one thing. I heard Darren Drager mention on a radio spot this morning, and we know that right now the hints regarding Tavares. It sounds like he wants to stay in New York, but he wants to see the team do things. He wants to, he wants to make sure that the organization is, going in a direction where they can contend for a Stanley Cup, because he'll be there for the remainder of his career if he signs the extension, the 8-year extension. Drager thinks that with the cap going up, that Tavares could get as much as $14 to $15 million. To get the 20%, with 20% of 80 million would be 16 million. I don't think he's going to get that, but if he does that, he's guaranteeing he's never going to win, because they're going to be spending all the money on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to. I mean, what we've seen so far is some of the players who've re-signed, have done so for a little bit less, so their teams can stay competitive. So we've seen that to a degree. That's why Stamkos signed for a little bit less. I know for a fact, and.
Well, it was the tax thing in Florida that helped it out, because
it helps too. But there's no question. I mean, Stamkos could have gotten more, and than he did.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact, that he was offered considerably more when the Leafs sat down with him, but he basically got scared away by that presentation that they made to him, where Canadian Tire and the mayor of Toronto, and they went all out, and he just said, "I'm ready to sign with Tampa." So
yeah, I mean, you can't discount the ability to kind of live in a nice environment like that, where you're not under the microscope all the time. Right. And Stamkos sort of plays into his personality a little bit too. So
it does.
It made sense. Sorry, my throat's sore. I'm trying to eat talk. All right, here's something that's really interesting, and I wrote about it today.
Okay.
Erik Karlsson. Okay, so I know we know he's going to get moved. It seems like he's going to get moved. It really does. I mean, when I talk to people, this is the one player. I mean, we've had lots of guys before, like Stamkos and Tavares, where we said, okay, they could possibly go someplace else or what have you.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we always felt like they wouldn't. This is the one player, the first player that's been in this situation where I feel like that they could, that he really could go someplace else. And I talked to a good friend of his, like a close source, and because I was tipped off last night on the concept of Vegas getting involved in this somehow. Now, I was thinking, okay, so if it's Vegas, it's not going to be via trade in all likelihood, because what could they trade? I mean, what could they trade really to make that trade happen? I guess they have some prospects, but they
had 3 first-round picks. They have a slew of draft picks over the next 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, it would all be draft picks. I mean, it's just complete draft pick deal, basically. I mean, they're not going to trade any of their players right now because they're doing so well. But Karlsson would be okay going there, which is one of these things that sort of surprised me to a degree. That's what I was told, at least. I know people like to go to Vegas. They're playing well, and the idea is it's a nice place to live and a good place to raise families and stuff like that. So,
but let's be real. Let's be real about Vegas in the sense that Erik Karlsson is not going to play forever, and Vegas is not a threat for the Stanley Cup. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're not a real Stanley Cup threat. Are they really going to be a Stanley Cup threat by the time it's not too late for Erik Karlsson? That's what his agent's going to talk to him about, because that's the part that's really askew for Vegas, because even though things are going great right now, James Neal in 2 years, the wheels could fall off then, right? And same with some of these other players, and then all of a sudden you're back to having to fuel with.
Maybe that's the thinking. I mean, they are. I mean, I would venture to say that they are a Stanley Cup threat right now. Now, I know that's kind of crazy, but they're one of the best teams in the NHL, so it's hard to sit there and say, like, last night
regular season. If you're going to tell me now that you think they could beat, Anaheim if they were to face Anaheim, but they wouldn't, right? They're not going to. But if you're telling me they can beat like the best team in the East, I So.
Well, last night's game was a biggie, because everyone's looking at, okay, Tampa, and it's the second time they've beaten Tampa.
Right.
So they're 2-0 against Tampa.
Well,
but the whole thing, talking to people, and I think you can never discount. You always have to take into account, the concept of when a team is playing for its life. Like you put Tampa in a situation where that game, their season, if they're going to be eliminated in that game last night, even though
it's a whole different game.
Right, even though they look at it like, okay, Tampa players are saying, yeah, we're getting up for it. We're playing the best team in the West coming in versus the best team in the East, everything like that. It just changes when the season's on the line. You can't.
Let's be real. Vegas has had no injuries.
Yeah.
No major injuries other than Flurry.
Which is probably which many people would have argued was their most dangerous injury.
Well, no, but what it did was it forced them to play. It forced them to play that playoff style defensive hockey that the Leafs are trying to play. But they have a lot of veterans who are capable of playing that. That was one of the benefits of having a bunch of second, third, and fourth liners. They're used to playing that way, so they've been able to, take advantage of that and win. And they play with high energy. I've been very impressed. Nobody expected them to do this, but when you're talking about them going out and either trading or signing Karlsson, or I've even heard Tavares as a potential, like, okay, there you go. They've got a virtual clean slate in terms of salary. They could go out and offer him $15 million because they have literally nobody on the books. But the problem is, you sign there, and you have to take into consideration that this year is a Cinderella year, and you have to look at this team 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and will they be competitive for a Stanley Cup? They might be, but it's no guarantee. And if I'm a Karlsson or I'm a Tavares, I'm looking at teams like say Nashville, if they can fit you in, or Toronto with young players, or a couple, 3, 4 other teams that have a structure, and you just jump in and they're automatically a contender. And I don't think Vegas is at that level yet.
They are. No, and I think but we have to remember, I think Vegas now is different than they used to be. Example is, again, talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots. Tom Brady had a jammed hand 2 days ago, but yet the spread was 9.5. So all of a sudden, now it's down to 7 because they added X amount of people early on with that ridiculous spread.
Yeah.
9.5. Now, Vegas, hold on. So Vegas Golden Knights, they've got it third at 10-1. Now, there are going to be people that put stupid money on this, thinking that just what X says, hey, they're a team of destiny, yada, yada, yada. And they're going to add a lot of money to Vegas only being 10-1, and no one's going to collect on that. I could pretty much tell you they will not be cashing that ticket.
Right. I agree. But, will they go out in the next 2 years with, the benefits that they have, extra draft picks and a lot of cap room, and go out and get players? Yeah, I think they will. But I also think that a player at the point in Karlsson's career, who's 27, I believe, who will be 28 when he becomes a free agent, I think he has 4 or 5 really, really good years, and then he'll start to drop off a little bit. They're not going to go to a situation where they don't know where things are going to go. I think they're going to go where they think that they can win. And you're putting a lot of faith into George McPhee to say, okay, this team is going to be a Stanley Cup contender in 2 or 3 years. I don't know if that's the case. So I'd be skeptical, but it's possible.
It's true, but Gallant also is a very popular coach among players. If he stays there, that's a big difference maker.
He'll stay there. They have no reason to let him go anywhere, and he's got no reason to leave. So I don't think that's an issue.
Let's talk Max Pacioretty for a second, who I talked about yesterday, and the possibility of him going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I really thought was insane.
It is insane.
I know you think it's insane too.
Yeah,
the people who are talking about it to me are definitely the people who would know. And he's in Montreal is, first of all, being incredibly aggressive, trying to move everybody.
Yes.
Except for like Price, basically it's the only player that's not on the market right now.
Yeah, I heard a report that said that the only players that are completely untouchable are Price and a young player like Victor Mete, because he's 19 years old and they think but basically they would talk trade about anybody just to hear what the other team would offer.
Yeah. And
I guess that's fair. I get that.
Now Pacioretty, is obviously an American kid. They, very popular among certain there's certain players out there who will tell you, and certain coaches out there that love Pacioretty, and it's not always, some of the Americans. The reason I say that is they have their detractors sometimes.
Oh, he's a good guy. I mean, he's great in the locker room. He is having a down season, and you do wonder though, and teams are going to wonder this: is he starting to feel the wrath of playing a physical game up to this point in his career? Because he's had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, my skepticism regarding Pacioretty is not the quality of the player. I mean, he's scored 30 goals 5 times. He's a quality player. He's still in his late 20s, so he's got gas left in the tank. His contract is very reasonable for another year before he becomes a UFA. I mean, I think that if there are teams out there that are looking for scoring, I mean, that you could do a lot worse than Max Pacioretty. Or where I question things is Toronto making a trade for a player like Pacioretty when they already have somebody who they're supposedly they're interested in re-signing to an extension, which is Van Riemsdyk, who's a similar type of player, although there are some differences.
Yeah,
but it's skeptical. There's some skepticism of whether they're going to be able to, and that's where the Leafs are right now. They're locked into a playoff spot, and they could even trade Van Riemsdyk and probably still finish in 3rd place in the Atlantic. So their need is defense. And I don't see them expending the assets that they would need to trade for Pacioretty, because Montreal's going to be looking for young assets and probably a 1st-round pick to get for Pacioretty. I don't think Lou Lamoriello is trading that for Max Pacioretty.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate in this regard. Like, you didn't think Boyle was coming last year, and he did, right?
Well, I didn't think they would be stupid enough to trade a 2nd-round pick for a guy who was a rental who was not going to sign there.
Okay, but they did.
But they did.
Okay, but they did. And so is it possible that if Lou knows Pacioretty really well, which is very possible, that he believes he could get him onto a contract pretty easily,
yes,
then that would make sense for him to get him. That would be the only way it would make sense.
Right. And that would be in concert with this, Russ. If they did, if that's what's behind this, then the
next. Are you waving a candy cane?
No, it's a pen. That's a candy cane.
Okay.
Jeez. If that was what was going on, then that would be in concert with them trading Van Riemsdyk, because they can't trade for Pacioretty and then sign Van Riemsdyk.
Right. That would be I think Pacioretty fits in more to their plans.
But I do think he's more of a Babcock guy. I would agree with that.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a Babcock guy and fits in, and the kind of guy that Lou really wants in his team too. I mean, that's the big thing too. You have to remember is Lou likes his superstars and all that stuff, but he really likes, the guys that, think of like the John Maddens and the Giannis, and think people like that they were the real ones in New Jersey that led that whole thing. I mean, Elias was there, of course, and all that stuff, but Niedermayer was there, but it was Madden, it was those guys that were part of his inner circle.
Right.
No, that's fair.
And I haven't heard necessarily though. The interesting thing between the difference, someone asked me the difference between Lou in New Jersey and Toronto, and besides money, which is obviously the difference that he's got more money to spend.
And I think he's lost a half an inch. I saw him in the elevator yesterday, and I think he's a half inch shorter, but I didn't want to ask him.
That's pretty funny. In New Jersey, because there wasn't this committee that, where he had now he has Shanahan and these other, and Babcock and all these guys playing these big, there was really just him. And so he formed his own committee of players, and he had a very strong player committee that was with him all the time. And the decisions were made, trades and everything were made with these guys in the room. They were there with him, figuring it out. He doesn't do that in Toronto, because obviously he has his other committee of things too. But I think he misses that, because I've talked to people, and I think he does like to be in touch with the players one-on-one to see what's really going on with the team. And as much as Babcock is an incredible coach and all that stuff, he's still Lou's the kind of guy who wants to know what's going on. He'll never always take a meeting with you. So
and any deal of that magnitude would probably need a sign off from Babcock, because you're not going to trade for a guy like Pacioretty.
I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, Babcock, for better or for worse, for a lot of fans, the Leaf fans right now are being critical of Babcock because of his reliance on veteran players that, like Leo Komarov or Roman Polak, or playing Jake Gardner 23, 24 minutes a night. And it drives fans crazy, because they want to see the young players who they think have a lot more potential. They want to see Matthews out there on the first power play and not.
But every coach drives Leafs fans crazy. Ron Wilson drove them crazy. Would you rather have Ron Wilson assuming Ron Wilson was in good health, would you rather have Ron Wilson than Mike Babcock? I mean, you have to be real.
I was never a big Ron Wilson fan. I thought his tactics were idiotic. But I mean, I liked Randy Carlisle, but I know the analytics crowd thinks he was insane.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, for every person that you can find that likes a coach in Toronto, the next guy hates him.
Well, no, right. If it doesn't, you can't rule by the whim of the fans. You have to be a strong leader, and that's what Babcock is. But anyway, so let's not get on Toronto.
No, I think Mike Green. Mike Green's the other player I want to talk about too.
Mike Green is maybe the biggest name in all of these trades. Whoever he goes to, he could most directly affect as far as in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And in the last hour, and I haven't even gotten an update this on the rumor chart yet. In the last hour, I heard the Islanders had talks with Detroit about Mike Green.
I can see that.
I think that would be a great fit for them.
Now, I don't know if you've heard anything about this. I know that because the talk out there is about Evander Kane and the 3 or 4 pieces that the Sabres are looking for. Yep. And pretty much it's once Kane goes, and there's speculation that he's going to go, rather early on, that the Sabres want to make that move as quickly as possible, probably because they don't want him to get injured and cost them the bevy that they bring back. But then most people think that Pacioretty would be like the plan B after Kane goes. I heard something about Nashville looking for scoring. Russ. Yeah. Right.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things that I have been hearing down at the rink. The first one is Mike Green may be back to the Capitals.
I heard that too.
Hearing that.
Wow.
I've heard that too.
It does make sense on a lot of levels. Yeah. There's a factor where he knows what's expected of him there. He's been successful there. Players know him. So there's that. And then we do hear about the Ilya Tolvanen coming over and playing for Nashville. And that's where I think Nashville is going to try and get their scoring from. I do. And so to answer the people's question from yesterday about Tolvanen, I don't think it matters where he plays, like what league, what team, whatever. If they put him with a veteran or two on the line, if you get him a puck and he's got a half a second to shoot and a little bit of net to shoot at, no matter what the league, he will score some goals. How many? I don't know. But he'll score some goals with the shot he has.
Let me ponder this question to both of you. If where Nashville is right now, where I think they're 1, 2, maybe 3 to come out of the West and get to the Stanley Cup Finals.
They're 14-1 odds right now. Vegas Golden Knights have better odds than Nashville.
Right, which is
buying it for a minute.
Which is ridiculous. But they've added Turris. Their defense is solid. Ellis is back. Forsberg will be back well before the playoffs. They're in a good position. Maybe they can, if they add one more scorer, they can, they vault to the top. Russ, would you give up a prospect like a Dante Fabro in a deal to get that? If it's a rental or if it's a guy like Pacioretty with 1 year, would you go down that road, or would you think that Poile would?
No, I don't think Poile would.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I do think
their window is a couple years.
Yeah, I do know Evander Kane is on their radar, though. You're absolutely right about that. I mean, there really are 5 teams really with Evander Kane right now, and it's pretty much up in the air as who they are. And I wrote about this today too, but it's Pittsburgh, which definitely has. Pittsburgh is a team that thought they had him last week.
Well, there are 3 wingers: Kane, Pacioretty, Hoffman, and it seems like most of all the teams are the same in that mix for all.
Here's the funny thing about that: of those 3 players, I asked somebody today, Hoffman this person said to me, was the least likely of those 3 to be traded, which means that Pacioretty is more likely to be traded than Hoffman, which I thought was really surprising.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
That's because of the term in the contract. He's got 3 years left on the contract, and he's not having the best of years, but he's a quality player. So
I think if you find the right team, Hoffman becomes the most attractive guy out of those 3. If you find the right team.
But Pittsburgh, St. Louis.
Nope. I tried. St. Louis was for a while, but no, I'm not hearing that anymore. But go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Calgary.
Not anymore, I heard. But
Nashville.
Yes.
Los Angeles is always looking for scoring.
Yep, but they've sort of shifted, I was told, but I think they're still. I took them off the rumor chart with Kane, but I do think that they're possible.
Russ said yesterday, and has said a couple times that that Washington might be in on a guy like Kane because
I think they could be.
I can see that. No, I would look. I mean, honestly, there's some teams that are looking more towards, getting Kane and signing him longer terms. So Kane's not just a rental. It was just kind of surprising, but it's actually true.
Yeah, but
I'll put Florida in that category. Florida as a team
Boy, Florida's got enough problems where I don't know if signing Evander Kane to a 5-year deal after this season would be wise for that team.
Okay, but put yourself in Florida's shoes. They're not making the playoffs. They're 12 points out of a playoff spot. They're not making the playoffs.
Right.
So what is your rush to trade young assets like a Michael Matheson or somebody like that to get Evander Kane when you can just wait till July 1st and sign him?
Well, there isn't much of a rush, but at the same point, what we don't know is really Kane's market value is so random to me. Like when I talk to people, there's not, we think it's got to be something incredible, but it might not be. It might be something like they talk to a Kane ahead of time and say, okay, we'll sign you for another 5 years. They have that in place, and then they make the deal.
I think it's random because people are concerned about the character issues.
Honestly, I don't think you could get Evander Kane to agree to anything after being traded. That's the honest truth. Yeah. I think he goes straight to free agency because I don't think he'd be amenable to anything. Yeah, he's not been that guy.
But there are a lot of people who think that his value is to sign right now is better than it will be.
Yeah, but I don't think his agent's going to tell him that because if you get him to the summer, how many guys are really going to be?
I think that's exactly what his agent's going to tell him. If you're worried about the character issue, like if you're worried about the character.
No, but I think teams are going to overlook that. What I'm basically saying, and you have a better idea of this than me, Ek, if you get to the summer, how many free agents on the market are better than Evander Kane? Not many.
Not that many. No, I mean this is not a great free agent market for sure. But the other team, San Jose, somebody to look to it with Evander Kane. They definitely need scoring, and they would.
Well, they have youth that they could trade. They definitely do that.
Another team is Carolina, who people are overlooking, but Carolina is actually going to be involved in this trade deadline.
I think they'll be involved in the deadline. I agree with that.
With the new ownership, giving them a little impetus, and also the fact that they lost Aho to injury. I don't know how long the injury is, but I mean, Ron Francis came out. I think it was when the press conference when they announced Thomas Dundon as the new owner. He basically came out and said, "Well, we're not gonna get robbed in a deal. We're not gonna give up young assets." Well, if you're going to get a guy like Evander Kane, if you're going to trade for a guy like a Pacioretty or a Mike Hoffman, you're going to have to give up young assets. That's one of the things that your team has in big bushes is young prospects. So that's what you're going to have to trade. You can't hoard them all.
Yep. Did you guys talk about the injuries yet?
We talked about
Shattenkirk and Nugent Hopkins.
Okay. And yet to find out exactly how much that's going to affect things, but we'll see.
Well, Russ, you don't think that the injuries that the Rangers are involved they've had is gonna all of a sudden make them sellers, right?
No, because a rational person may look at it and say we might need to sell off at the last minute, but the Garden is never rational when it comes to admitting they're out of the playoffs. The only way they ever admitted they were out of the playoffs was when they were under the Glenn Sader regime and they were 8 points out with a day to go before the deadline. It literally has to be that dire. Otherwise, no.
And with the Knicks in a death spiral, they're definitely.
Yeah, they look to make money. They literally make $1 million a game when they're in the playoffs. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
We can finish off with a couple questions from the chat room if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead. That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go. We got 3-4 minutes left.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Bruce. You got the chat.
I don't have it open, so why don't you guys?
Okay. So, somebody asked me what I thought the Rangers could get for Nash and Grabner. I really don't think they're going to get anything for Nash, but what could they get? They could get a conditional first or a prospect, one or the other.
Especially the way he's playing the last couple games. He was scoreless in a dozen games and now has 4 goals in the last 2, so he's turning it on.
Yeah. For Grabner, I think they could get a prospect or a second or third round pick.
Yeah. Second round pick. And what you were talking about in terms of a guy like Patrick Maroon, who is arguably a top 6, top 9 winger, with a cheap contract that a team like LA would be interested in. A guy like Grabner is a guy that that LA would be interested in because he's only making $1
all
million.
day long. I agree with that.
And that's a team that's slow. So a guy with the lightning speed that Grabner has, it would make total sense for the Kings to trade for Grabner.
Yeah, the Rangers will trade him for Marion Gaborik. Go ahead, move on.
Excellent. I haven't heard much about. I mean, the team I've always heard associated most with Nash is San Jose, and I haven't heard anything as far as terms go. And it seems as if lately the Sharks have moved to other things, and the Rangers seem to be okay with him right now. So,
no, I agree. Somebody's asking would it be Erik Karlsson for Chris Letang in the trade? No way. There's no way that Ottawa would take on that kind of money. It's not happening.
No, Ottawa's got to be really careful about how they handle this if they're going to do it. They really do. They have to make a really good trade.
The thing is, every time I think this is a summer deal, this is a deal at the draft, I think to myself, okay, if Karlsson is not going to re-sign, if he's bound and determined not to re-sign in Ottawa, then it behooves Ottawa to trade him at the deadline because the team that's trading him, or the team that is acquiring him, gets him for at least 2 playoffs. Now they'll probably want to trade. They probably want to sign him to the long-term extension. Any team that's going to trade significant assets to get him is going to want to sign him. But if he wants to be a mercenary and go someplace for a year and a half and then test free agency, if you're Ottawa, you probably have to move him sooner rather than later. But I don't know.
Here's a good legit question. Okay. A good legit question is: would the Penguins package a young goalie and Ian Cole for a forward? And I think, yes, they would, but who are they going to get? That would really be the question. Like, who would the forward be? And maybe Hoffman would be that guy because Anderson's getting up there in age. They don't really have any great young prospect goalie in their system.
Yeah, but can they afford to give up a Tristan Jarry with Murray having the injury problems? And right now he's out.
I say it's Jarry. Why can't it be Gustafsson?
Okay,
I know Botterill likes Ian Cole a lot up in Buffalo. I've heard that a couple times. They've tried a couple ways to get him.
Well, if there's a deal involving Kane, I wouldn't be surprised that Cole was part of it because they probably the Sabres.
Cole's a UFA after this season.
He's a UFA, right? But I mean,
I could see Botterill signing him to a deal, but Cole getting traded somewhere else.
Right, that's possible too. Any more
bring
questions?
him in, signing him. I mean, because you can. If you're a defenseman going into Buffalo, you can be suddenly guaranteed a lot of time. You could guarantee a lot of power play time. Cole could get a lot of guarantees, or someone.
Especially with Zach Bogosian being injured all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll end the show. We'll end the show there. We'll end the show there.
One thing I wanted to mention before we go to is kind of really sad, and I know this. I don't know if you guys mentioned it or not. The passing of Red Fisher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 91 years old, a long life, a great career.
Yeah, I mean, and I got a chance to meet him, and he looked at me, he talked to me, and this was right after the lockout, up in New York, and it was really amazing. He actually, he talked to me and acted like he had read my stuff, which was, and knew the lockout and thought it was a fun thing that I was doing and all that stuff in the lockout. So I thought it was kind of cool, and because I grew up obviously reading him, and it's just one of the all-time greats. I mean, I think that I don't know if there's any greater than Red Fisher at all time. I mean,
I believe Russ that in the PHWA he was member number 1.
He was.
Yeah, and he went to meetings. I mean, I met a couple times he was there. In the early on when I saw him.
That card gets retired now.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, Stan Fischler, I guess, is up there. Someone said to me, but
yeah, he's probably card. Well, he's not in the PHWA. Never mind.
Yeah, he probably
might have been before, but okay.
All right, okay. There you have it. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the weekend. A lot of great games going on. See how far this goes. And the one thing I did want to bring up something else you guys said really quickly when you were talking about trading for Karlsson. It really has. I can't remember a year when a conference like the Western Conference was more wide open. So
yeah, I still agree with that.
So if you do bring Erik Karlsson onto your team, and you're one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the West, you become the top team in the West pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So that's another reason why you could see it happening, I think. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. We will talk to you Monday. Enjoy.